Look at what they value and look at their budget and what they're proposing. Romney wants to let he said in the first 100 days, he's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
That's so unbelievably offensive. Let me introduce you to three guests. Kira Ann Davis, she's a video blogger and featured contributor at Independent Journal Review. Star Parker is founder and president of the Center for Urban Renewal and Education and syndicated columnist. Joseph Phillips, he's an actor and conservative commentator. Welcome, all three of you, to the program.
Thank you. Good to be here.
That is really offensive. Really offensive.
It's offensive. What he said is offensive. The way he said it is also offensive.
Yeah.
And I always get a big laugh at how these politicians on the left launch into that kind of folksy black dialect whenever they want to appear like they're in with us.
Todd.
Oh, my God.
Hillary.
Oh,
and Obama does
That
the
never
same
gets
thing,
old.
you know, with he drops the end of his words at the end. That I find offensive.
It is offensive, but I think the audience caught on there too. Notice they didn't know how to respond because blacks know when they're being offended and when they're being mocked, and although they might think they have no alternative but to accept what Democrats throw out, we're hoping that on the gun issue they think otherwise.
Well, I really don't understand because, I mean, everything, first of all, we were just talking before we went on the air, that everybody I supposedly supposed to hate, women, Jews, blacks, everybody. This is what this is all about. Right. That's what this is all about, is keeping people free, no matter who they are, keeping people free. And they're the ones that are really, truly enslaving and putting in danger all of these people.
That's what I was kind of saying in that video, and I sort of referenced that Biden comment in my viral video about the Second Amendment. And I said, you know, as long as I've been a Republican, which hasn't been that long, a conservative, which hasn't been that long, every time a conservative or Republican has been up for election, it's from the left, it's been, this person is going to put you all back in change. This person is going to roll back civil rights 40 years, you know all that, those scary things. And my thing is, look, if you really honestly believe that can happen, why would you support a gun ban? You should want guns because at some point you're going to have
as you can get.
At some point you're going to have a Republican president. So you better make sure that nothing like that can happen.
If it's going to happen.
So let me ask you this, because you've been on the history of gun control for a while. Most people, I mean, we sit around today. The guy who owns this is a friend of mine. Does anybody know what this is?
No.
This is a really important, this is a more important symbol than the Liberty Bell was for emancipation. The guy who owns this, I was in his house, and he has a history like you wouldn't believe. And I was in his house, and it stopped me dead in my tracks, and I said, oh my gosh, where's that come from? And he said, what? And I said, am I not a man? And he didn't even know what it was. This was originally done by Wedgwood, the guy who makes the famous Wedgwood plates. This was the symbol, and he put it on plates originally. And this went to all of the people who were against slavery. And they used the symbol, and it said above it on the plate, am I not a man? Am I not your brother? This is an important piece of history. Most people don't even know it. There it is, right there. Am I not a man? Am I not your brother? But people don't even know the recent history.
Right. Well, they don't know a couple of histories on this one, and that's the reason that I started challenging when I heard that the Democrats in the Senate were going to take up gun control. I started challenging this premise that this is a good idea to disarm the society. We don't understand black history when it comes to the relationship to the Republican Party, for one, because blacks were traditionally Republican. It was the party that freed us. The Democrats have never changed their strategy. They've always wanted people unarmed, uneducated, and dependent on whoever that master is, whether it was the master at that time in slavery or whether it's the master today that keeps them in chains to the welfare state. But also they don't know their history when it comes to gun and gun protection. All blacks were not slaves. This is something that a lot of African Americans themselves do not know. They were not enslaved. Democrats have convinced them that they've always been servants and that they need to just be quiet on this particular issue. No, it was over a matter of time that they disarmed the black community, and mostly because the freed slave was a threat to those that were keeping others in chains for a couple of reasons, but also as blacks became free, they started seeing more black code and more opportunities to disarm them so that they can keep them under control.
You know, I'm glad that Starr brought this up. You know, as an actor working in Hollywood and as a consumer of entertainment, I have grown so tired of seeing film after film after film portraying black characters as cowering in the corner while the Ku Klux Klan or Night Riders are outside threatening them, waiting for someone to come save them.
That's right.
The truth is that black people often fought back, and they fought back with guns.
That's right.
And being the cowards that they were, you know, wearing hoods so you can't tell who they are, cowards, they thought that wisdom being the better part of valor, better not to face bullets, let's go to and use the political system to deny those people the right to own guns.
That's right.
That's when you started to see all of this anti-gun legislation, gun control legislation, was to keep guns out of the hands of free blacks, newly freed blacks.
You can't deny that you can't deny that connection. And as a matter of fact, in the 1800s, when the KKK started, and we hear you were just educating on this earlier, but we know that that was a wing of the Democrat Party, the enforcement wing. And what would happen is, in the South, local sheriffs would go in. They would bust into black homes, especially the farmers, you know, a lot of rural families, and they would confiscate their weapons under these laws that were being passed or even just being discussed. They didn't necessarily have to be passed. And they would say, well, we're taking these for safety reasons. And then 3 or 4 weeks later, a band of, you know, 500 or so KKK will come through, murder everyone, burn the house down, because the weapons had already been cleared. This is not an issue of what's safe for school children, what the Second Amendment meant when it talked about guns. It meant muskets. It's not an issue of that. It's an issue, as a black Americans, it's an issue of our freedom. And we should be concerned about this. This should not be a partisan issue.
But it's not just about the black, because when you think about what they're doing now, they just passed that into law yesterday, well, out of the Senate hearing, background check, and now they're saying, well, we should do something about the mental cases, and then we should do something about those that have criminal background. Selectivism was tried as well, because getting to their point, even prior to freed slave, there were free blacks in this country, and when we started seeing systematic laws to select just a few that were not able to be armed, what's really interesting in black history is that there was an opportunity, especially in northern states, to where black freed slaves did not have a right to bear arms, but Southern slaves did, because their job was to protect their master's property. Over time, we started seeing those rules get harder and more harsh. So for anyone in the majority community that thinks that, well, it might be a good idea to just let's investigate a little bit deeper into people's lives to see if they should qualify for a gun, when do we stop these qualifications? If you look back in the European law, those qualifications were class and religion. If you look in our law right now, talk about mental state. If you've had an abortion, did you know that you're 81% more likely to have a problem with mental challenges later on in life? Are we going to start asking, have you had an abortion on these background checks?
So hang on.
I mean, come on, there's a lot of problems here.
I want to go right there. We have to take a break. Why don't we go right there? Because the background checks, they are going to
What are they going to ask?
They are going to hurt the African American community.
Oh, absolutely.
And using the argument of the left, you can prove that it will hurt the African American community more. And I'd love to hear your reaction, and how do you get this message out into the black community and educate quickly enough to be able to stop this juggernaut?